I wanted to ask what's the craziest thing you've encountered on a project, but I feel like we've
No,
already
that's not
broached
it.
that.
No, that was nothing. That was um the scariest thing. I used to go when I did Museum Tower. Um, we had this really tall crane, obviously, and we jumped it several times. But the flagman is supposed to. It was a really old crane. It was older than I was, and it had to be greased manually all the way every part of it. And the flagman we have was this little chubby kid who was afraid of heights. And so I always liked climbing cranes, and the previous cranes I'd had before, I would climb up them and take. I had a nice camera. I would take photos and just really enjoyed that and got to know all the operators. And so I was like, well, I'll do that. I'd only been out on the end, actually rode the trolley out to the end once, and that was terrifying um, at a level that's not the same as going on the counter deck. But I had done every month I had to go up at Museum Tower and grease all the different parts all the way down through it. I was always tied off and everything, and I always followed the rules. And I had but you'd have to climb down into it and do all the different the trolley wheel and everything else. And the heights never bothered me. But towards the end of the project, I was out there one day. I'd greased everything. I had my camera with me, and I was in the trolley, and I was telling him to come back, and I was going to video coming back towards the cab,
A little dolly zoom
and he
action.
started to gear it up to come back, and I told him to do it quick, and he started to do it, and it starts to go, and I'm just getting pulled back, and I yelled like I was able to grab my radio and yell at the last second for him to stop, and luckily he stopped because he's a really good operator, and my lanyard had been draped, and it had gotten stuck in the trolley wheel, and I was being sucked into it as he spun it, and I'm 600 feet above the ground. I'm hanging over downtown Dallas, and so my heart like luckily I stopped. Like I was good. I was still in the basket. Everything was fine, but I could have died right there. It took me about 15 minutes. I always tell everybody when I do training for fall protection, I always have a pocket knife with a serrated deal on it. Because even with a knife like this, when was up there, it took me 15 minutes to cut myself out of that lanyard that was stuck in everything.
Oh my
And it
god.
just because it was made so well. And the whole time he doesn't know what's going on because I'm so panicked. I can't even talk. He just knows I said to stop. And he couldn't see me because of the angles. And so finally got myself cut out. I thought I was okay. I got down to the ground, but I made myself a month later go back up and do the same thing because I wasn't sure mentally how I was. And it was worse than the first time I went up. I was shaking like a leaf. I was terrified. And by the time I left, I was okay again, but I'm glad I went up and made myself go up again. But now I always warn everybody when they're wearing fall protection to watch their harnesses around moving equipment. If you're in an elevator, equipment room, if you're around any moving parts, make sure you keep an eye on your lanyards because they can get sucked into stuff. So that was the craziest one.
You got me sweating over here just thinking about it. I've been out on the jib a couple of times, and just being there, like you said, it's nerve wracking enough. I generally don't have a fear of heights, but
Yeah.
there's something about being cantilevered out over a city that's just a little
Yeah.
unnerving. And as you're explaining that to me, I'm just like, I don't want to go back up on a crane now because of that. I'm thinking of all the terrible things that could happen.